We'll get into the coverage around the game, but let's talk about the 90 minutes itself first, because it felt like we were knocking at the door, doing all the right things, creating loads of chances, loads of opportunities, but the ball, it was like kind of like a magnetic field type of game where you just could not get the ball in the back of the net. Obviously all the goals came in the second half. We had 85% of the ball in the first 45 minutes, but it was just felt a bit wasteful in a way, Rach. I mean, what did you think?
I think it takes time to figure out a low block. And I know, like, I saw some comments being like, it's not like they've never faced it before. Like, how are they struggling so much? To think a team just kind of goes out and goes, this is exactly how this low block is going to show itself. And this is exactly how we fix it. A low block isn't a singular way of playing. Everyone doesn't do the same thing in a low block, right? So you've got to find ways and get time to kind of figure out when you're on the pitch. So there was a lot of movement, a lot of possession. And you're essentially, problem solving on the pitch. You're trying to work out some of these players. Are there opportunities? Can we draw them out? Will they jump? All that kind of stuff. And I think it took that first half for England to figure that out. I thought Ukraine, as expected, were very disciplined. But the difficulty with playing a game like that, when you've not got possession of the ball, it's very, very tiring. And I think England knew, if they were patient, that those moments and those opportunities would come. So yes, they were very dominant in the first half. And yes, it was frustrating. But I did feel that they were going to figure it out. They were creating a lot, not a lot on target, and that's difficult when it's so compact in the middle. So I think getting half time in to be able to go, okay, here's what we've figured out from the first half. Here's where we think we could exploit. If you're this player or that player, I think Georgia Stanway touched on it speaking to Sophie after the game, where she was told to start taking some shots from outside the box. We know she can do that. Players were told to, start having a bit of a pop from outside. Players will step forward then. If they know you're going to do that, that creates space. So it was just that 45 minutes to figure it out. And I think the second half proves that they did a very good job of doing that.
Yeah, definitely. The chances they created were ones that I thought, okay, yes, 100% Ukraine's defence I thought was super, super effective. They were kind of, crowding the middle areas. They were making it congested. It was really difficult to kind of find those through balls and find players. But at the same time, there were so many missed opportunities where England could have just put the ball in the back of the net. You get away from the fact that, Russo is particularly the first kind of like 10, 15 minutes had some really, really decent chances and then chooses to shoot straight at the keeper, or a header that's like, what should have it should have been a clear-cut goal, but it goes over the bar. And I think that's what I meant, by wasteful. And I didn't mean to kind of have any discredit on Ukraine and kind of how well they'd set up, but it felt like England were knocking on the door and creating chances in really unique ways. First of all, I think they were going really direct, like taking the game to Ukraine, and then they're kind of trying to use the avenues on the left and right hand side, and then they're trying to go through the middle and finding some success where Ukraine are getting a little bit more tired or not being able to track their runners properly. And then you've got kind of Blinkilda Brown kind of stepping into things. Like, she's obviously trying to, prove her worth as well. She's kind of hitting the crossbar, which is I thought, if that's going to go in, what a worldy way to kind of like make your first kind of impact on the stage. What were your thoughts when you hit all that cross the box? I was just like, oh my God, an inch slower, an inch.
I think there's two ways that a team can look at that, right? And I think if stuff like that is happening come the 70th, 75th minute, you start to go, Jesus, it's never going to happen. I think it happening in the first half, they'll go away and look at it going, okay, we are creating, we are getting closer. Now, at the end of the day, I think there was 4 shots on target in the first half. Mm-hmm. That one wouldn't have been included, obviously. So they knew they were creating enough. They just needed to be more clinical, and that more opportunities would come. So yeah, there were moments where you're a bit like, oh my God, this goal has a force field around it. And what a way it would have been for Laura to get her first goal it would have been. So they plugged away. And it's not always going to be pretty breaking down a low block. It doesn't always produce the prettiest football. It can be a bit of a grind when you have to do that. But like I said, the second half was just a completely different story.
Well, that's the thing. And I was kind of wondering, like, what was being said to the team at half time, because it did feel like there was this kind of essence of experimentation coming in. You had Jess Park then starting out wide, scoring those 2 goals. And then but also at the same time, it just felt like, I think she was asked the question, I think it was ITV4 that she was kind of saying, okay, well, what was actually said during those half time? And she was kind of saying, well, you don't need tough words in those moments because everyone is actually giving their best. They're creating chances. They're doing what we've told them to do. Obviously, as she was saying, it helped to swap the wingers from one side to the other, and we came inside a little bit more, and then we started to totally control the game. But it did kind of feel like that was like the pivotal moment in actually finding success and essentially opening the floodgates. Like, I know I felt quite critical of, how we discussed the first half, but essentially actually it was so impactful, and it felt like the game had really turned on its head when those first 2 goals went in.
Yeah, and as I said, it was, I think the suggestion to start shooting more from outside the box, Stanway Park, they can score absolute worldies from out there. Ukraine then are alert to the fact that those threats are another thing they need to contend with. And if you're sitting in a low block, packing up the box, then suddenly they're like, okay, they're actually going to start taking shots from outside the box. We need to step out and try and prevent that from happening. You do that, you create space in the box. So actually that kind of thing was obviously said at half time. But yeah, I also think they spoke a little bit on the radio about when Ukraine got their goal. Now, I know England would have been raging that they conceded from a set piece as well. But I actually think it gave Ukraine a little bit of like, hang on now, if we get forward, we might actually get... Yeah, so suddenly they're stepping up a little bit higher than they'd maybe originally planned to. And that's, again, creating more space for England to operate in, especially with the personnel England had on the pitch. You've got players like your Jess Parks, your Lauren Hemps, who like to operate in that... They can operate in close spaces with players around them, or they're, lethal on the wings, as we saw. So it was just an interesting thing as the game kind of went on in phases, where England started to see those opportunities.
No, definitely. And I think, you're so right to kind of give credit to that Ukraine goal, because it was such an interesting timing of the game and kind of what it could have actually done. It could have completely turned the game on its head. And I did see like a bit of a burst from Ukraine afterwards. It did feel like there was some swag about them after that was like, hold on a second, we could cause a real upset. And it did feel like obviously it was completely against the run of flow. And, Kalanina kind of getting sight of the ball and just getting a foot on it and just seeing what happened. And there were so many bodies in front of Hampton. There was just absolutely no chance that she was going to get to it. But it felt like after that then, the Lionesses could have sat back, but actually I feel like it inspired them in the same way that it inspired Ukraine, because, getting that goal then 6 minutes later, getting another goal 6 minutes later, and then it felt like the game had kind of run away from Ukraine. So yeah, it was, I don't know, it was a very kind of, it was a confident performance all round.
Job done kind of vibe.
Yeah, it was like you walk away from that, it's 6-1, and you're thinking, yeah, that's probably about the result that they would have been pitching for.
Yeah, you can be annoyed about the goal conceded. Yeah, you could have been a bit stressed in the first half, but had you said pre-match it's going to be 6-1, you'd have gone, okay, yeah, that's probably what I would have thought would happen. I do want to pick out Stanway's second goal. The way she picked that out from under her feet, it kind of came into her in the box. She was had players quite close around her, and the speed that she just kind of picked it out from under her to put it in the top of the net was, yeah, that was one of those goals that gave an audible reaction from me. When by this stage I was in the media room in Ireland, in Dublin, that was one of those goals that made me go, oh, you know what I mean, when you just can't help yourself. So I think I want to pick that out.
100%. It was the technique on that one, because I think it was so little backlift on it. It felt a little bit LJ-esque. It was like, like the force of the ball doesn't warrant like the mechanism that sort of precedes it. And you just think, how the hell have you created that much force to get it in the top left corner with like that little So yeah, fair enough. Like technically that was absolutely ridiculous. And
more broadly, Georgia Stanway, I think, we're seeing her get up a little bit higher more, and I think she's doing a much better job at supporting Alessia Russo, who sometimes will drop deep to try and create. And in the past, you've not always seen England being very good at reading that. When she's come back, someone won't necessarily step in to fill that gap. And I think Stanway's gotten a lot better at developing that relationship with Russo. So yeah, I thought she offensively had a really good game.
Definitely. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the backline then. There's been a lot of discussion about England's fullback positions, especially who might succeed the legendary Lucy Bronze. But did we see the future last night? We had Maya Le Tissier starting at right back at this game. We had Taylor Hines playing at left back for the third time in England's last 4 games. Lotta Ruben-Moy also starting the game after Alex Greenwood picked up a minor muscle injury. But obviously, Leah Williamson back to it, playing for the first time for a country since the Euro 2025 final. She was replaced by Esme Morgan, but do we feel like this is kind of like, it's a hard one to kind of gauge, because there wasn't a lot for the back line to really be doing in this game. It was a relatively sort of an easier fixture for them, so there wasn't a lot of kind of tests that they were really facing as a new lineup, as people are kind of calling it. But what do we kind of think about the positioning
in terms of personnel? Probably there's some young right backs coming through the youth groups, but I don't think at a level to step into the shoes of Lucy Bronze, and which is why I think Maya Le Tissier is the one doing that. And I know this has caused a whole fucking uproar, which I'm just bored of now, because, you know, it's not like England are lacking in depth in the central defensive area. It doesn't mean Maya Letizia is not an excellent central defender. Like, she is a very good centre back, but she is also so good that she can play at international level at right back and is the best option for England. The other option is probably to play someone else out of position there, and they probably wouldn't do as good a job as she does. You've also got the benefit of a player like that who's versatile, and we've talked in the past about the importance of versatility. You know, I think that's something that's becoming more beneficial and more respected, I think, in the game. You know, you look at players like, there's not many players who can play two positions at national level. Rachel Daly was one, and she was obviously quite a contrast in both the back and the front. But I think probably this might be the kind of, we'll see more of them playing, and I think you've got the likes of Esme Morgan coming through and looking really confident. Lotte Wubben-Moy getting a lot of minutes as well, which is really important. So yeah, plenty of something Sarina Wiegman's often criticised for not doing for some reason, rotation in the squad, and plenty of new faces.
I do feel like Sassy Rees kind of gets stuck in this like Euro 2022 mindset that there's this narrative around it that she just won't change a formation. And I'm like, it was 4 years ago that was taking place.
Let it go, guys.
Yeah, literally that. I don't feel like she's fully shaken it off, which is bizarre. Maybe this is kind of like a counter narrative that the England team are trying to create around that.
We just need to put in 11 players you've never heard of, and only then will she shake it.
Literally that. And then, like, even to add to what you were saying there, so she obviously handed a debut out to London City Lionesses left back Poppy Patterson as well as a substitute in the second half for Taylor Hines. And then you've kind of got Katie Reid like stepping out, obviously like not in the sort of England setting as much at the moment, but like everyone's kind of pitching her that she'll be like the next Leah Williamson. I feel like the OGs that we know are kind of like, there's these like little whippersnappers kind of nipping at their heels in a way, and it's exciting.
Yes, but it's also important to remember that some of these OGs, or as some might call them, veterans of the squad who've been there a while, are still like 28. So, you know, this idea that they need to be moved on, it's like, come on, they've came into the squad quite young and they're at their prime now. So to still be seeing new blood coming through is quite exciting.
Well, we touched on the game a little bit, and it kind of makes sense now that we'll talk about the backdrop and the context to which this game sits, because we have to remember that this is a very, very tough group. Ukraine, Iceland and Spain, and there's only one automatic qualification spot. This is the worst part of my job on Upfront, is trying to go through like how these different tournaments keep changing their bloody minds about how they're going to format things. So I'm going to do my absolute best, and the notes are written in front of me, so I really can't get this wrong. And I know that Sophie Downey is somewhere in the background of your setting. So if I have fucked up too much, then Soph can jump in. Yeah. So each of the four group winners in League A go straight through to the World Cup. Each other team in League A will go into the playoffs. So far, so good. I'm understanding that.
But also worth just reiterating to people, only the team who comes first automatically goes through. That's bloody hard. Carry on.
That in itself is quite the test. So no matter where England finish, they will have a chance. Even if they finish last and get relegated from their group for the next edition of the Nations League, they will still be in the pot for the playoffs for World Cup qualification.
Correct.
That stands. Everyone
understands that. This is what I'm thinking of Ireland-wise. Yes, we're in a tough group, but there's always a safety net of a playoff.
Do you think that just while we stop there on that moment, like, do we think that has an impact on like the competitiveness and like the jeopardy that people feel going into this? Because it feels like, yes, 100%, you want to get your first spot, but you're not thinking, oh Christ, I've not got the first spot. Well,
no,
because I've got a second chance at it.
Playoffs are then seeded, so the better you do, the lower seeded team you will essentially play in your playoff. So actually coming even third out of the four is better than coming four out of the four. Does that make sense? Because you'll essentially face a team from another league, but it will be a more favourable, I'm putting in inverted commas, in quotation marks, a more favourable tie the better you do.
And how are they then seeded? Is this on world ranking? They're seeded as opposed to like where they finish in their respective leagues? Yeah. Okay, cool. But you could have a team, it might not even make sense in that way, because you could have a team that technically you wouldn't want to play against because of like how good they are, but actually they've not performed that well, and actually they end up in a lower seeding than they otherwise would do from like a world ranking perspective. Which
makes this difficult, and why it's worth reminding people that this qualification method is really difficult with only one team guaranteed to go through in each group.
the top 3 teams in each of the 4 League B groups will also go into the playoffs, as will the 6 group winners and the 2 best runners-up in League C.
So they're the ones who are the other side of the draw, right? So say everyone in League A essentially you've got the 4 that qualified, great, they're gone. Mm-hmm. Everyone left is going to be put into a playoff with those teams that you've just mentioned. So you're going to more likely have a more favourable draw if you come second in the League A group, because you may face someone from League C, rather than if you come last, you might face someone from League B. But so the first playoff phase, you play one team across 2 legs. So in October, you'll play your first match against whoever you've drawn across 2 legs. If you win that, you go into phase 2, which will happen in November. And if you win that, you go into the World Cup. Point is, it's difficult, and it's worth saying that.
I'd really like to put this to a vote of the listeners that have got to this point in the pod and understand the format, and those that don't, just from my own understanding, because sometimes I come away from these conversations and I'm just like, I must be thick as shit, because there's just no, like,
In your defense, you are also juggling the hosting of the podcast and the reading of the words the right way, and you're making sure that you're saying what you're meant to be saying. So to then ask you to then interpret what the fuck you're reading as well on top of that is tricky.
We always have a bit of a joke on this pod that they call me Ron Burgundy behind the scenes, because if it's written down, I will say it no matter how much sense it does or doesn't make. So I just want to out myself here that is
I'm going to do that
doesn't come naturally.
In the running doc, it's going to be like, go fuck yourself, Upfront listeners.
Like, that is generally what happens sometimes, and thank God it's not live, because it would be absolutely fucking chaos. Anyway, not moving swiftly on, we've got a really good question in from Anne Dominga on Blue Sky. After past experience of the Nation League A, B, C league split, what are the pros and cons for the higher and lower ranked national teams compared to the previous format?
Okay, well, for the higher teams, as you can see, it is more difficult to qualify. And you play, more than likely, the same teams over and over. Hello, Spain, my old friend, right? Like, that's one kind of downside. For the lower ranked teams, particularly in League C, this is what I was concerned with. Again, they're kind of playing the same teams over and over. Are they really improving and being exposed to different types of football just staying in League C? And when this came out, everyone said, this is great, it's going to stop the 10-0 results, it's going to stop the 12-0 results, it's exactly what we want, it's not good football, blah, 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 blah. And I always think back to the times that I used to go to those 10 and 12-0 games. Luxembourg, England won 10-0. And I'll never forget sitting in the post-match press conference and their coach saying, up until after the 7th goal, we were doing everything we had hoped to do from our game plan. We were learning loads. We were really proud of how we were, putting ourselves out there. Those last 3 goals were really disappointed with. They were mistakes. They were this. And they had taken a huge amount of learning from that game. They brought England to their brand new stadium. They were delighted to have this game in this stadium. And I think as well to North Macedonia, who we spoke to their head of women's football, and she was saying, we're not going to get to a World Cup, realistically, for a long time. This is our World Cup. We get to host England, the European champions, and we get to play that game in our main stadium in Skopje. We don't often get to play in our main stadium. Like, this is huge for us. This is really exciting for us. And they learn a huge amount. Like, I'm sure, Chloe, you know this as a player. Like, you learn a lot when you play teams above you. And I just think my only concern is that lack of opportunity to kind of grow. And yes, you might yo-yo back up into League B and have a couple of windows where you might play a different team for once, but then you end up back down in C again. And it's just that kind of, that's my concern about that. Now, as you say, you've got League C winners who will go into playoffs, which is great, but more than likely playing a very, very difficult opposition to try and get into the World Cup. So, pros and cons.
There you go, Anne Dominga. If that isn't the most comprehensive response to a question that's ever been submitted by a listener, I don't know what is. Moving on to the next fixtures then. So we've got England facing Iceland on Saturday. Spain beat them 3-0 on Tuesday. 2 goals for Claudia Pina.
They're tough. Iceland are going to be tough. Like, I don't think, you should expect what happened with Ukraine. We've had the opportunity to see Iceland play at the last 2 Euros. And I've been really impressed with them. So they will be a tougher prospect, I think.
Well, let's get on to some actual big controversy now. So we've just had a bit of an update. Spain are scheduled to play Ukraine next in Turkey on Saturday. There have been reports that the Spanish team wouldn't travel. However, UEFA told them they would face losing 3 points and a possible further sanction if they didn't fulfil the fixture. I initially couldn't work out what was going on. I assumed it was some kind of sort of player welfare, player safety situation. Obviously, the political, the globe's on fire. Rach, you've got sort of further info about sort of what the rationale is behind this decision and the sort of risks that Spain are taking by potentially not fulfilling this
I think
game.
a drone either shot down in Turkish airspace over a US airbase or landed in a US airbase, a missile drone type thing, essentially came into Turkish airspace. And Spain were saying with the escalating, war essentially going on in the Middle East that they were concerned about travelling to Turkey to fulfil this fixture. And UEFA essentially said, Turkey is safe to travel to currently. All, security and foreign offices have said you can travel to Turkey. Obviously, caution if you're near the border with Syria or Iran, which I think was already the case. But essentially, it is a safe country to travel to. Ukraine have chosen this as the location that they want to host their games. So therefore, what UEFA... I think phrasing it as they threatened to, I think UEFA said this game is safe to take place. So if you don't fulfill the fixture, you then face the punishment for not fulfilling your fixture. That's essentially what I can gather. And Spain have said, okay, we'll do it. We'll come. So it is happening, essentially, at the moment.
I love that Spain tried to call out UEFA's bluff. UEFA were like, we're not having any of this. Get your asses on the bus and get over to Turkey. It would have made for a very interesting kind of situation for the Lionesses, I think. In
the current situation, all measures that are used to decide whether it is safe to fulfill a fixture are saying it is safe to fulfill the fixture. So that's what ultimately UEFA are saying. And I think, Ukraine have come, of course, obviously from a war zone. There was a great interview on Sky with one of their players talking about how the league is carrying on over there and how they have to kind of schedule 4 to 5 hours for a match now. They start at 11 in the morning because if the sirens go off, they have to go into their bunkers and wait for it to pass, and then they come back out and they have to warm up again and they have to carry on with the game, and that can happen numerous times. So, the fact that they are in a country that they feel safe in and are being told is safe, they probably very much want to play this game.
I think context like that really puts it into perspective, kind of what teams in some of these countries are really going through at these moments. Obviously to add to that also, the Ukraine team had to take a 15-hour coach to get to the stadium for the England game. Obviously, how difficult it is politically out there. They're not able to currently have any fixtures in the country as it stands. But
listen, the world's on fire at the moment. I can understand people being cautious and stuff, but sure. At the moment, Turkey is deemed safe to travel to. So. And I'm sure every effort is, put in place. And if the thing as well for Spain is if they do need to leave the country quickly, they will be able to, most likely. So I'm sure all safety measures are in place. It wouldn't go ahead otherwise. It's why Ukraine can't host games in their country, because the country isn't deemed safe at the moment.
Definitely. And then I think just to really top off this section of sort of global chaos and political messes and kind of the world being on fire, before we go off for a break, we've had confirmation that WAFCON has been postponed. This news comes less than 2 weeks before the tournament was due to start. So July the 25th is the new start date. This was something that had been broken last week, back end of last week or so, and sort of hadn't really hit kind of mainstream conscious yet.
Well, yeah. So a journalist broke it on the 27th of February. That it wasn't going to be going ahead. And, a lot of us shared it and kind of, this is crazy. And only now, the 5th of March, have WAFCON come out and, I'm not even going to say confirmed, but yes, confirmed it. Something that essentially had already been broken. I'm so disappointed for the players, for the staff, for everyone who's been gearing up for this tournament, to be told such last minute that it's not going to be going ahead. It's absolutely ridiculous.
It's such a shambles. I was honestly do you know, when just like, these are the kind of moments that people look at, or like mainstream kind of like news readers will look at and go, fucking hell, women's football is just like it's just not in a great place. And that's not the current situation at all. But like, how are you telling people this late in the day? Like, what has led to this decision? What rationale is there behind this decision? Like, I don't understand like how you cannot, these tournaments aren't things that are decided, 2 or 3 months ago. There are things that are put in place, years in advance to kind of decide who's going to host the tournaments and what the infrastructure looks like. Like, it's not good enough. It's an absolute fucking shambles.
But even just their reaction to this news being broken, it tells you everything you need to know. They didn't go, oh, geez, maybe we need to like speed up our announcement that it's not happening, given it's already been broken by a journalist. Oh no, it's fine. We'll just wait another like 7 days. Crazy.
What the fuck is going on, Rach? What's going on, mate?
Get your act together, guys. Come on.
Fuck's sake. Talking of trying to get their act together, after the break, Ireland comes so close against France. I can't wait to talk about this. Rach, I'm really, really sorry. There were Irish hearts broken. It just felt like, Melvin Mallard has essentially become what I can only describe as an enemy of the Irish people. It was such an incredible game. It was such an incredible account of themselves. Ireland were ahead for an hour before Mallard scored 2 goals in 10
minutes, please. Thank you. Well, we had 70.
Sorry.
We were 71 minutes in before France got back into it. So it made me feel better. Do you know, the kind of way we were 71 minutes into the game going, we're fucking ahead here. Jesus.
I really thought that this is one of the best performances that I've seen Ireland put on. And I think, like you said, Rach, I think everyone kind of expected that this was going to be probably on balance a France win. Ireland took the game to France in a way that the confidence, the kind of composure, the chances they were creating, it made France look like a second-rate team.
Stop.
Honestly, mate. No, honestly, within 3 minutes, you've got, that Connolly free kick, left corner, and like, to be fair, French goalkeeper, absolutely outstanding game, was 100% one of the big reasons why the on tipping the game was tipped. Mm-hmm. Absolutely big incredible saves as well. But it felt like in the first 10, 11 minutes or so, there was at least 4 chances.
We had 3 really good chances in the opening 10. I went into this game like that, thinking this is going to be bloody tough. We're in League A. We know we're coming up against. And look, I know we beat France before the last time we were in League A, but that was at the end of the group stages. Things had kind of been determined. So I feel like mentally, both teams were in a very different place going into that game. Not to take away from the fact that we beat them 3-1, it was unreal. But going into this one, France are a team that always scare me. They play with such flair, such speed. They've got such quality players in that team. And I just thought, like what you saw from Ireland, that they had a very clear game plan. I've been so impressed with, when they get their game plan, how diligently players can stick to it for the full 90 minutes. And I just thought that they knew they weren't going to have much of the ball. But what they've managed to do, and what Carla Ward is managing to create, is a team that can be really threatening when they do have it, as opposed to just kind of like some half-hearted punt it down the end and hope someone gets on the end of it. There's a real clear counter-attacking style of play that Ireland have developed, and they make teams work for a result. There's no kind of, I think people now know, you come into games against Ireland, it's not going to be easy, and if you want to come out with the 3 points, it's going to be a bloody hard job to do it, a hard task to do it. So yeah, we created 3 really clear, good quality opportunities in the first opening 10 minutes, which I was kind of like, A, we should have bleeding scored, but B, I was like, okay, this is not going as maybe as I expected, despite France getting a corner in the opening minute. So for McCabe to get the goal she did, brilliant work from Emily Murphy in the lead up to it, wonderful kind of assist from her. She was brilliant all night, and I really enjoyed her and Kira Carusa playing together because both of those players are excellent counter-attacking players. They have an engine on them, and they are so good out of possession. They put the backline under so much pressure. Oriane Jean-François had a super game, I thought. She's so quick. So every time we did have a counter-attack, she was so quick to get back to the ball. Kira Carusa or Emily Murphy were piling in on the pressure, and she's so calm in possession as well. So that's kind of, I guess, what made it tricky for Ireland. But as you said, yeah, a super performance. And I think Carla Ward is starting to understand now. When she first came in, I think she had a style of play she wanted to play, and she tried to play it and realised, okay, it's not going to be as simple as just implementing what I want. she's gotten a little bit of Ireland into her, and Ireland now got a little bit of Carla Ward into her, and I think they found a really nice blend.
You could definitely see how much it meant to her. When the McCabe goal went in, it kind of panned over to where she was standing, and the ecstatic, she was absolutely beaming. Obviously, the bench has gone absolutely wild, but you could tell like there was like a proper excitement for her. But I think there was also maybe a tempering in the fact that it was so early on in the game, and you didn't really know like whether this was going to be, okay, Christ, we're going to shit ourselves. We're 1-0 up. Okay, can we keep this lead? Are we going to be able to keep this lead? Do we go again? But what I absolutely loved was the mentality that Ireland showed to kind of, they kept their composure. They were like, we're 1-0 up, let's go again. It was almost like a 0-0 start. You know, when like we used to say, like the team captains used to say, okay, 1-0, pretend it's 0-0, go again. Like it was that mentality that I saw with the Ireland team when they kind of regrouped. They were like, okay, this means absolutely nothing if we don't keep this lead. And it kind of felt like, especially after half time, there were so many, again, really deep, like decent Irish chances. And it kind of felt like, oh, like if you don't get another one, I feel like the game is going to tip, because it felt like towards like probably about 65, 70 minutes then, that's when France were, it was like the momentum and the kind of shift and like the intensity of which Ireland were playing, it was starting to take its toll on them, and they were starting to kind of step off a little bit. They were becoming less to the first balls, and it felt like France were then knowing that was kind of where their weakness was, and then stepping up again. And full credit to Mallard. I mean, the close footwork, the trickery, the kind of her ability to take on players. There's a fearlessness in the way that she plays, and 2 goals, bottom right hand corner. It just felt like I just felt a real sense of kind of like, oh, they didn't deserve that. They didn't deserve that at all. I mean, what was it like for you watching it? Because I felt like it was like this. Constant.
It was tough, and I felt like a goal was coming for France, and I thought. Mm-hmm. Part of me was a bit like, do you know, if anyone's going to score, I don't mind that it's Mallard. I think she's been having such a good season. How she didn't start for France, I don't know. So part of me was a bit like, okay, fine, if it's going to be anybody, it can be you. You didn't need to get the second one. But I just thought, like, the fight then we saw from Ireland to get back into it, to get that second goal, I was super proud of. And Denise O'Sullivan had all but scored, only for Marianne Toto to pull off her best feckin' defending I've ever seen, and like saved with her face. She ended up in the back of the net, and the whole
I think it was the force in which the ball hit her was crazy. Like it took her back with it, and
we
I was
all
like,
thought it was in.
God,
we were all up, we were, and so yeah, it's hard. And like Katie McCabe came out and she was like, look, end of the day, we didn't come away with 3 points, and it in that raw moment, it's so disappointing. But you do have to look at it and go, we competed, absolutely competed. We made France work very, very hard to get those 3 points. They were very relieved when they came off the pitch that they'd come away with the 3 points. And to minimise them to only 2 shots on target against us is ridiculous. And I think there is a step up in quality across the team. And I think, we've seen them learn a lot from the kind of slower performances at the beginning of Carla Ward's tenure. And I just think that kind of playoff against Belgium was a real turning point for Ireland, where they almost went, okay, I see what we're trying to do now as a team, and like, I really buy into it. This could work for us. This could actually, we might not be a team who has loads of possession, and is, we're not a big ball playing team. And as much as Carla Ward would like that, I think she's realised what we're good at, and then helped Ireland to become more impactful when they do have possession and they do counter attack and they do look a real threat when they go forward. So that's quite exciting. I think the frustrating thing for Ireland was that Poland took points off the Netherlands, and ultimately, if Ireland is trying to get anywhere in this table, they're probably thinking more than likely Poland might be the team we can do better than. But now they've gone and picked up points against the Netherlands, so we're a bit like scrambling a little bit. And we face the Netherlands on Saturday, and maybe without some key players potentially, which won't be good. But I do think they can take this and try and use it as fuel to know that how well they can play. And hopefully take that into the Netherlands rather than go into it disappointed.
Well, I think, Rachel, you kind of touched on there the sort of the foundations that Carla Ward has built, and it kind of feels like the foundational layer has been built already, and it kind of feels like, okay, well, the next stage is kind of like the first level. It's kind of, okay, well, what does that look like? How do you establish that style? How do you grow in that confidence? How do you look at the performances that you have? And yes, you're not getting the results, but you're playing the right way, and there's a belief in the system that you're enacting. We've got a really lovely question in from Patrick on the Football Ramble Discord. He's saying that with just over a year to go until the World Cup, what's your assessment of Ireland and how they're shaping up?
I mean, I've probably touched on it there, in that I feel like Cara Ward has found a nice balance in what she wants out of Ireland and what she thinks they can, how she thinks they can play. I think you can see a real buy-in from the players. I also think across the board, players have improved. Players are getting more minutes. Marissa Shiva is playing regular minutes. You can see that in her performance and in her confidence on the ball. Emily Murphy is having a great, start with Ireland. Only recently really coming into the team. And at times early on maybe looked a little bit lost, kind of sometimes run around a little bit aimlessly. Whereas now I feel like she's got a real clear understanding of what her role is. She was everywhere on Tuesday. And as I said, I just thought her and Kira Caruso together were such a threat. It reminded me a little bit of like when you roll the dice and you play Aruso and Blackstenius together, right? They can be brilliant together, but who's going to come off the bench? And I just felt like the two of them together was a really good roll of the dice, because while we were going to be absorbing a lot of pressure, to have both of them as outlets proved to be such a threat. So I really enjoyed that. You've got players like Aoife Mannion, Caitlin Hayes, players like that who are playing well for club and getting regular minutes. And initially I remember looking at it going, Christ, we're going up against like a Baltimore and a Grascaoro. And then I'm like, hang on, a lot of the Irish players now play against them in the WSL, so they know what to expect. And I just think it meant that they were so much more switched on during the whole 90 minutes. And I think that's what really impressed me, is Ireland have always been quite disciplined, but they're sustaining and improving that even more.
Well, Patrick, there's your answer. And I'm assuming, maybe making some quite big assumptions there, but given that your name is Patrick, I'm assuming that you'll quite like that answer, to be fair. A quick word for Scotland, who battered Luxembourg 5-0 thanks to a Caroline Weir hat-trick. I mean, who bloody else? They're in League B. Northern Ireland are also in League B. Chris Lindsay had a tough start with a 2-0 defeat away in Switzerland. Wales kicked off with a 2-2 draw against Czechia. We had Josie Green on the pod on Tuesday, of course, and she agreed that this is going to be a very transitional phase. I've got a lot of stick actually from that pod about my ability to size a baby through the various stages of the weeks. So yeah, it was.
To be fair though, people seem to use really random measuring tools. Like it could be a fruit, or like it could be a fucking ball. Like, how are you supposed to know?
Literally, I didn't even know this was the fucking thing, but here we are.
It's a peanut. It's a watermelon. I don't know.
Well, that's the thing. At 22 weeks, did you know that it was the size of a large banana? No.
Why would you measure it in a banana? Is it that shape? That's a stupid measurement.
Yeah, well, that's what I said.
Like, don't use fucking things to measure it by. They're not even the same shape. Why would you do that?
I've got no
idea. That's making me think that your baby looks like a banana at 22 weeks. That's stupid.
You know what? You're the first person who's agreed with my assessment of the whole fruit thing.
I will back
and I
you,
have
Chloe,
no
on
doubt this is going to be clipped up. This is going to be clipped up, and I'm going to feel validated, and that's absolutely fine.